So in recent years, there has been a pretty big movement that's happened.
Mm-hmm.
The gratitude movement.
Yeah.
And it's a little hippie-ish, like a little flowery-ish.
Yeah.
Like it gives me the same vibe as like the people that talk about manifesting now. Like,
That's true.
like you just gotta manifest your truth.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, you just gotta be grateful and then life gives you more when you're grateful.
Yeah.
And it's almost like this whole thing of if you turn yourself positive, the positive vibes will come your way.
Yeah.
It's a little weird,
Yeah. Well, when I think of gratitude, I really, it's funny. The movement, I think, started way back. Oprah on her show got into, this was when she used to have a talk show way back in the day. She really got into this whole gratitude thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, gratitude is good, and we are actually going to talk about it, but it got really touchy-feely. It got really, and I think a lot of the manifesting and all this other stuff came out of that, where you feel it, and everybody talks about feeling. And for me, and I think a lot of men, we're like, okay, that's weird.
Yeah, nah.
Yeah, we just kind of back off.
Yeah.
And the problem is gratitude's a good thing. You don't want people who maybe represent it in a not so good way or in kind of a weird way, or if they're trying to sell you something. You want to represent it in a good way where it's just not weird, because a lot of us just avoid it.
Yeah, the unfortunate truth is gratitude is not like manifesting, because gratitude actually has a lot of truth in it.
Yeah.
Gratitude is a good thing, and we're going to talk about why that is and how to approach it, not in a way that's super weird and touchy-feely, but in a way that's practical and helpful and will help not only you be better, but make the lives of the people around you better. So all that and more on the show.
This is the Thriving Man Podcast with David and Reese Maxwell. These weekly shows are designed to help you remove the confusion from your life and make real progress with your growth. No matter where you are or where you're going, we're here to help you live a life you can be proud of. So welcome to the Thriving Man Podcast.
Welcome to the Thriving Man Podcast, where our goal is to help you break out of survival mode and get into living a life that you can be proud of. I'm Reese.
And I'm David.
He's my dad. And we exist to help men live that amazing life.
Yes.
And part of that is what we're talking about today.
Yeah, we're talking about gratitude. It's a great thing that a lot of times we ignore, as we talked about in the opener, because it just seems to get weird, and we want to make it to where it's not weird and creepy.
Yeah. Gratitude, it just makes life better. The unfortunate truth is a lot of times we don't appreciate things until they're gone.
Yeah,
the old Toby Mac song had a great line. You never know what you got till it's gone.
It's true.
It's kind of true. Because I think of my own life. Now that I am an adult, living in the, I don't want to say harsh world of adulthood, but it kind of is, it's like everybody wants your money and everybody's trying to take advantage of you all the time. But now that I'm an adult, I can more appreciate the home that you and mom gave me as a kid. Because as a kid, I don't think about it. Like you just go home and my home's peaceful. Duh. My parents love me. Duh. Yeah, they got my back. Duh. But then once you move out and you get into like just life and there's people that are like, oh, you got to prove yourself or whatever. Then I look back and I see how much work you and mom put into making my life better.
Yeah.
And I can appreciate that now. And there's that element of me that's like, man, I wish I could have shown that gratitude in that moment, but I just didn't know the difference. And the unfortunate truth is that's how it is with most of us.
Yeah.
You don't realize that your health mattered until it's gone.
Yeah,
you don't realize that this person mattered until they move. And we get stuck in this like continual cycle of almost forgetting what we have.
Yeah.
Gratitude's about shifting that.
It is, and gratitude helps us to really think through what we have and understand what we had, and I think that's for you. It's like, okay, I'm seeing what I had. And I think sometimes we don't want to beat ourselves up.
No.
Because part of it is you don't become aware of something until you're old enough, mature enough, like you're maturing, so you can look back on your childhood from a different angle.
Right.
Where when you're young, You can't see
You don't know
things.
the difference, yeah.
You just, I want a sandwich. And mom provides a sandwich. It's amazing.
Yeah.
You don't think about that mom had to go to the store and buy that, and dad had to make the money, or mom had to make the money, and whatever. You're just a kid.
Right.
The problem is, as we become adults, if we don't become aware of this stuff, if we don't cultivate gratitude in our lives, we kind of have that kid attitude all the time where, well, of course I get whatever I want. And there's a lot of people living that way, and that's the problem. And so what we want to do a lot of times is blame. Well, kids today or adults today, like as an older generation person, you always hear the older, young people today, they don't get it.
Nobody wants to work anymore.
Nobody wants to work.
Yeah.
But what it is also is we as adults have to discover what are we grateful for. But a lot of times that comes with wisdom. Us growing and seeking wisdom, growing in wisdom, and I think doing things to make us understand what we can be grateful for.
Absolutely. Like you said, when you're a kid, you don't know the difference. But when you're an adult, you have some agency on whether you want to live a life of gratefulness or not. And here's something that we want you guys to walk away with. Gratitude is cultivating an awareness of reality.
Yeah.
It's connecting with reality. Here's the funny thing. A lot of times we assume the more stuff we get, the more grateful we'll be, the more happy we'll be.
Yeah.
Some of the least grateful people in this world are people who've had everything. And some of the most grateful people in this world are people that have almost nothing.
Yeah.
It obviously does not have to do with your circumstances, but with your outlook. And a lot of times we don't live the kind of life that we want to, a life of joy, a life of peace, because we don't have gratitude. We don't know how to even appreciate what's in front of us.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about gaining gratitude, we're not talking about like some form of self-deception, like a person that walks around like, I am healthy, I am healthy, I am healthy, I am healthy. Like that's not that's not what we're saying here. We're saying you're connecting with the truth that a lot of times you accidentally ignore.
Yeah, and there's a reality that I think we have to look at and be grateful for. Like in I believe it's Psalm 104 talks about the fact that God sustains everything around us.
Right.
And because of that, we should be grateful to God. But if you don't sit there and think about the fact that the atoms are held together by the Word of God, you wouldn't know to be grateful for that. When you take a breath, it's because of God. And people say, well, there's so much evil in the world and all that. Well, that has a lot more to do with us than God. Because he said, hey, don't do this. We did it, so the world got messed up. But when you cultivate that gratitude, it helps you really think about, what am I grateful for? We're sitting in a house right now with electricity. I'm drinking a wonderful glass of hot tea. We have air conditioner going.
Yep.
There's a lot of things that people around the world don't have. And this is not just because you have it, you should be grateful for it. But because you have it, you should be grateful for it. We can drive a car. We have internet. We have so many things that I think sometimes we just don't think about. We're not aware of the reality of what it would be if we didn't have them. And that's why we have to, almost on purpose, cultivate, like we say, the reality of gratitude and what's going on.
Yeah. It's funny. Gratitude comes with practice. But being ungrateful is natural. Isn't that funny? You don't have to teach a kid to be ungrateful.
That's true.
No one has ever sat down with a kid and be like, hey, you're really showing a lot of gratitude right now. I need you to be a little bit less content.
Yeah.
And I need you to really go out there and tell me what you want for Christmas. Because all you're saying is I'm happy with what I have and I'm thankful for your unconditional love. And
the kid says that, you think they're a robot.
Yeah, it's fake. Being ungrateful is very natural. I think part of that has to do with the sin nature. Part of it also has to do with the fact that our culture is built on what's called a consumerist economy.
Yeah,
it's about selling stuff, and companies make money if you always want more. That's great for companies because you always got to want more,
Yeah.
and then you buy more, and then you spend more. Boom.
Yeah.
The
And that's
economy
what they
works.
want.
And so not only is it the natural bend of humanity, but we also are in an environment right now that is adding fuel to that fire more and more and more. So gratitude is kind of a lost art.
Yeah. Well, it is. And what we have to do, I like what you said, that we have to practice it. And that's the thing that we forget. As a parent, you want to teach your kids gratitude. What do you say?
Yeah,
We
that's
say
true.
thank you. You have to tell your kids, tell them thank you.
Yeah.
It's the whole thing of what is it when they open the card from grandma or grandpa and the money falls out? They have to, read what's on the card, be thankful for that.
You're not supposed to look at the money.
Yeah,
Pretend
the
it's
money
not there.
is secondary. And you teach that to your kids because you want them to understand that, grandparents, although grandparents kind of are money trees, you should be thankful.
They worked for that money.
Yeah.
That money didn't just appear in their bank account.
Yeah. And so you want to teach that, but we sometimes forget we need to do that to ourselves.
Yeah.
That we have to practice the reality of gratitude. We have to practice being grateful for things. You and I were talking in preparation for the show about imagine going back 40 years.
Yeah.
Which would be 1984 at the time of this recording. Well, I was alive in 1984. Okay. You internet wasn't even a thing. There was no such thing as a smartphone. If you had to get directions, either somebody told you had to remember, or you had a paper map. Your phone was something connected to the wall. It's all these things. And so when I think back, I'm very grateful. Like, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back. Can you imagine having this mentality, but then going back 40 years and having to live 40 years waiting?
And driving around would be such a pain in the butt.
It would be like, I don't know where anything is. And what do I do with this paper map? And gosh, I'm connected to the wall. You get a crick in your neck.
Yeah.
And all these things happen. So as you get older, you get very grateful for those things.
Yeah.
But you also have to practice that, or you just think, well, the internet's always going to be here. But what happens when your power goes out?
Yeah.
What happens to us in the West when our power goes out? We freak out.
Yeah. Just the fact of losing AC.
Yeah.
Like when our AC was having trouble last year, when it started breaking down, I would call you. I'd be like, Dad, can I come over?
I know.
Because sleeping in the South in the summer without AC, miserable.
It is.
But, 80 years ago, that's reality.
Yeah.
Turn on the fan, open the windows, and get eaten by mosquitoes, buddy, because you're going to have to deal with it.
Yeah, it's one or the other. And that's where a lot of times we look to people who are older and they seem to be more grateful. And the reason is they know what it's like not to have a lot of the things we have, and they're very appreciative of it.
Yeah.
And so what we want to do is learn to cultivate that ourselves, because I think with that, we gain wisdom to appreciate.
Yeah.
To really have appreciation. And then it's easier for us to teach it, and it's easier for us to live with that grateful attitude and just make us a better person to be around.
I was thinking the same thing. Gratitude is kind of a cornerstone habit.
Yeah.
That if you are truly consistently grateful from the heart, not just saying it, but you actually believe it, the way you treat people is going to be different. The way that you respond to things is going to be different. The way that you see yourself in the world around you is going to be different. And the truth is, in our world today, you will find evidence for your mentality. It's all about what you're looking for.
Yeah.
You can either look for things to talk about, oh, my life sucks because of this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
Or you can make the choice to connect with the reality that, well, God's blessed me with this. And you could have an unlimited list because we are so blessed.
Yeah. What was the example you gave earlier from the book, The 4-8 Principle?
Oh, yeah. The guy who wrote that book, Tommy Newberry, his son broke his arm and he was in a cast, and he was talking to his dad, and he was like, Dad, there's so many things I can't do. And he started rattling off this list of all the things he couldn't do now that he couldn't use one of his arms for the moment. And Tommy said, well, give me a second here. Let's try and make a list of 5 things that you can do with one arm. And he was like, okay, well, I got my right arm, so I guess I can write stuff. and he started naming things one by one. And it got to 5, and he didn't want to stop. He got to 7, 10, 20. Ended up making a list of 30-something things that he could do with one arm. Our focus, we will find evidence for it.
Yeah.
And so I think it's kind of a no-brainer. Do you want to constantly look for evidence of why you should be miserable and just be sad?
Yeah.
Or do you want to connect with the areas that you're very blessed in and be grateful and be able to enjoy your life and be a more enjoyable person to be around?
Well, and if you look at that, if I'm doing something for someone and they're really grateful for it, guess what? I'm going to want to do more.
That's a good point.
Like I enjoy cooking. If I cook for someone and they're like, thank you, and they just eat it and don't really say anything, okay, the thanks, But if you get someone who's like, this is amazing.
Oh, yeah.
This food, this is the best food ever. You're like, I'm cooking for you every day. You know, because you want to serve them because they're so grateful. And I think a lot of people today have lost that to where the lack of gratefulness in their life, they wonder, why does everybody treat me so bad? How come I always get the worst service? Because a lot of times we go in with an expectation, you should treat me like a king, but we're not grateful.
Yeah.
And people will respond the way you expect, I think, a lot of times.
It's absolutely true. And unfortunately, people have taken that and turned it into basically manifesting.
Yeah.
But the biblical principle behind it is simply the whole treat others the way you want to be treated kind of a thing.
It's true.
Or there's a great book called Be a People Person by John Maxwell. And he talks about that. He talks about you need to see the potential in a person and treat them according to their potential, not according to how they're acting.
Yeah.
Then they'll usually rise to the level of your expectation.
Yeah.
So he gave the illustration. He was at a restaurant. There was a girl there who was being a jerk. Like I'm talking annoyed, frustrated, very short, never checked on the table. But what he decided to do, and this was 20, 30 years ago, he decided to get a $20 bill out. And he said, hey, can you break this 20? Because I want to tip you well today. She started, like, it totally changed her mentality. Because he was like, I want to tip you well because, you know, I think blah, 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 blah. And he spoke some life into her. And she just totally changed her attitude. Not just for his table, but all the other people's table.
All the others.
Because he saw the potential and called it out of her. Gratitude does that in our own life.
Yeah, it does.
When you're grateful for your spouse and you tell them how grateful you are for them, watch. Just watch how they treat you change.
Yeah.
Like, don't do it to be a manipulative person because they're going to see right through that.
Yeah.
But if you genuinely mean it, your relationship will grow.
Yeah, it will. There's no doubt.
So let's, before we finish the show, gratitude's great.
Yeah.
It's not always natural.
Yeah.
But what are some of the big pitfalls to gratitude that hinder our awareness of what we have to be grateful for?
Yeah, I think one of them is kind of something we've mentioned in a way, and that's that whole entitlement thing. You know, where you think I deserve everything to be good in my life.
Right.
To where you kind of forget that life doesn't always turn out the way you want or the way you think you deserve. And there's a lot of people, and I'm not saying entitlement in a way to put people down. We all have to struggle with this, and that's why it's really a choice.
Everybody's got
grateful.
some of it.
Yeah. You know, like when's the last time you were grateful for your refrigerator?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I use the refrigerator, you know, I don't know, 100 times a day in and out. But I don't sit there and thank you, refrigerator inventor. I don't even know who it is.
Yeah. God, thank you for a fridge. You know, you don't think like that. No.
The only time you think of it is when you lose power.
Oh, dude. Yes.
And you're like, I'm going to lose everything in my refrigerator. And you know, people have written books about what would happen if, you know, we lost all power around the world and everything. And I don't even want to think about that. But entitlement is where you start forgetting about the things you should be grateful for. And I don't mean, you know, should be. I just mean just looking around. You just look like refrigerators, you know, your car. You know, when your car doesn't work, you're very grateful for a car. And it's one of those things that I think entitlement is a dangerous place to be. We're very blessed as a people. I used to take teenagers on mission trips around the world. And it's so good to take someone who's, 14, 15, 16 years old to a country that doesn't have it as good as ours, because it makes them appreciate. I've had students come back to the United States and practically hug toilets because where they were at, toilets didn't work that good. Or they couldn't do certain things because of the toilet system and stuff. And it makes them incredibly grateful. And I think what we have to do is be careful that we don't allow ourselves to just feel entitled, like, I deserve this. Everything should work for me, and it will.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a kind of ignorance, because the whole idea that things should be good.
Yeah.
Or I'll do you one better. The whole idea that God owes me. I
Yeah.
got saved. God owes me a good life.
Yeah.
That's a problem. Because in the biblical worldview, it has what's called the sacred worldview,
Yeah.
which is the view, like you talked about earlier, that God is actively holding everything together. Here's another way to say that. The natural setting of our world, if God's not actively holding things together, is death and destruction.
Yeah.
The natural setting of our world is for everything to fall apart without God.
Yeah.
Now, because he graciously is involved, oftentimes things function
Yeah.
all the time, every day. Like
Yeah.
our breath,
Yeah.
that's a gift from God.
Yeah, it is.
It's almost like maybe like a bike, to where if there's no one pedaling and keeping it on track, that bike will not function very long at all on its own. It's just going to fall over. That's kind of how our world is.
Yeah.
And the funny thing, what we do is we assume, well, the bike should be balanced and go on forever.
Yeah.
No matter what. Nobody has to be involved. It just should.
It just should do it.
The bike was designed to do that.
Yeah.
Therefore, it should do that all the time. And we take that view with our life, and it's ignorant, because we're like, well, God, you owe me health. You owe me a good job. You owe me money. You owe me good relationships. You owe me happiness.
Yeah.
Fill in the blank.
Yeah.
No, he doesn't. I mean, my goodness, he saved us.
Yeah.
And if that was the only thing he ever did, it's far more than we've ever deserved.
Yeah. And it's one of those things I think we sometimes get used to looking at the world in the way it is. And we may be blessed in many different ways, but we don't realize how his hand is a part of that. It's kind of like your yard. If you don't mow your grass for 1 month, and let's say it rains regularly, it's not going to be long before your grass is a jungle.
Yeah, it's true.
It doesn't take long for a yard to just explode.
Yeah, especially in Mississippi.
Yeah. In Mississippi, we get a bunch of rain, a bunch of sun, grass just explodes. And so what we have to do is understand that our world without God gets really, really bad. People say, well, how come there's so much evil in the world if God's a good God? Well, God's a good God, and he helps us come against the evil and fight the evil within us, around the world. And so we have to understand that. But if we forget that, then we forget the original reason we should be grateful. The fact that we have life is a gift from God. And you think, well, isn't there more? Well, there is more. But you start with that premise. You start saying, I'm not entitled to anything. Everything I have, I should be grateful for.
Yeah.
And if you approach life that way, life's a little sweeter.
Absolutely.
Because you begin to notice the stuff like a sunrise, the beautiful day, the clouds, little things like that help you just kind of relax, not get so caught up. Like if you're driving in traffic, but you take the time to look at the sky and realize how beautiful it is, it helps you kind of calm down with the dumb drivers around you, which, is an attitude that's easy to have. Everyone's an idiot. But when you're taking time to going, hey, I'm good. I'm blessed. I have a car. I'm going to work or whatever. If I sit in traffic a little bit, it's not the end of the world. I think it calms you down and makes your day a little better.
Absolutely. Yeah, you have that classic image of let's say you have been looking for a promotion and you are late to your interview or whatever for the promotion. And so you wake up in your fancy bed and you get out and you turn on your running water and you splash that on your face, you wash it off, you put on your clothes, which you have tons to choose from.
Yeah.
You run out the door and jump in your car that works and is nice and blast that AC as you drive on the way down these roads that are maintained by untold people. Oh, you're almost out of gas, so you go to one of the many stations that's set up for you to be able to conveniently fill up. And then you drive into the office, which has its own parking.
Yeah.
And you walk into the building, which has AC and electricity. And you go in there, and you haven't thought about any of that. You're just thinking about the fact, man, today everyone's against me.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how many of us live our life.
Well, and I think that's a big point, that it's not only an entitlement mentality that helps or causes us to hinder the reality of gratitude, but there's a victim mentality. You know, everyone's against me. You know, the man's out against me. The society's against me. And when we get that attitude, we really lose our idea of gratefulness because we start thinking, well, I'll never be grateful for anything because everybody's trying to take it from me. Everybody's stealing it from me. Or, you know, if coach had just put me in, kind of like the Uncle Rico syndrome. And I think a lot of people can suffer with that today.
Yeah. I heard a quote. It's interesting. I actually have it written down here. It's by somebody that won the Nobel Prize. Her name is Gabrielle Marcia. And she says, "What matters in life is not what happens to you, but what you remember and how you remember it." A lot of times we latch on to the bad stuff rather than latching on to the good stuff.
Yeah.
I think what we need to acknowledge is a lot of how we live our life has to do with what we focus on.
Yeah.
A lot of how we live our life. If you're looking for people being out to get you, you'll find it.
Yeah, you will.
I mean, this is a world full of competition, and there's corrupt people out there. Absolutely. Just call your insurance company and try and file a claim, and you will recognize that there are people that are against you. But there's also people that aren't. There's also God who has given us so much. You get to choose your narrative that you live by.
Yeah.
Will your narrative be one being attacked and nothing ever going right?
Yeah.
Or will your narrative be focused on the people that love you and the things that you're blessed with?
Yeah, it's true. It's like I just followed this account on X. I forget the title of it, but it's basically an account that brings good situations. It almost like restoring humanity or something. And it has these incredible stories of people doing good for other people, people doing the right thing. In fact, I just saw one the other day where this UPS driver or FedEx driver, this little boy came up to him with a skateboard. And he had signed in and said, "Hey, I want you to take this to Tony Hawk. Do you know who Tony Hawk is?" And the guy's like, and the mom's like, "Yeah, make sure Tony gets it. You know, just her boy wanted it." So he took it, and it was from a little boy named Cooper. And so the guy made a video and put it on X saying, "Hey, you know, if maybe this could get to Tony." Tony did a reply, "Cooper, your board's on the way to me. I can't wait to see it. And because of this, I'm going to send you this board." And he sent the kid a signed board from him.
Wow.
And, you know, of course, I mean, that blows up. But it's one of those things when you hear that, you know, people say, "Oh, that's schmaltzy, that's cheesy, whatever." No, that's good. It makes you think, you know, there's good people out there. Because a lot of times our social media feed is all the evil and the bad.
This guy said this. Can you believe it?
I know.
Yeah.
Can you believe it? We hate everybody. But when you hear that, it helps you go, you know, there's some good people out there. And I think it helps you find some things to be grateful for.
Yeah. And that's really our challenge to you guys as this month goes on. Over this next week, especially, before we give you your next assignment, try and find one thing each day that you're grateful for. It can be a big thing, like something that goes right, or it could be a little thing. Maybe it's the fact that your vacuum cleaner works.
Yeah.
And when you know, tried to vacuum your floors, the vacuum turned on.
Yeah.
You know, there's always something. And if you can learn and just start one thing a day, you can begin to cultivate an appreciation for the big things and the little things. That will make your life better. It'll make this Christmas season better.
Oh, yeah.
Christmas is chaotic. there's a lot of people doing a lot of things, you could easily get annoyed. But if you learn how to focus on the good things each day, you'll be able to enjoy this season more than you have in a long time.
Yeah.
So start that, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Thriving Man Podcast. If you want to check out more resources from David and Reese, you can go to thrivingman.com. We'll see you in the next episode.